As fears of a wider Russia-NATO confrontation grow, Western military voices are questioning whether alliance members can sustain the kind of long, high-intensity war witnessed in Ukraine. Are NATO members' armies ready for the full might that Putin's soldiers could unleash on Europe? Western personnel training and serving alongside Ukrainian forces have drawn lessons from a war marked by drones, artillery, fortifications, and immense ammunition consumption. Mold's stark assessment is that a prolonged war requires resilient supply chains, civilian preparedness, not only capable armed forces, and he says those systems are not yet ready. The Ukraine war has underscored the extreme costs of attritional combat can continue for years beyond the capacity many peacetime systems were designed to support. How can 32-member-strong NATO hope to win against Vladimir Putin's Russia? Amid fresh concern about potential conflict between Russia and NATO, a senior Norwegian officer has warned that Western countries are not prepared for protracted war on the scale and intensity of Ukraine. Brigadier Atle Mold, who commands the Norway-led Task Force Legio that trains Ukrainian personnel in Poland, said bluntly, "We are not prepared. No Western countries prepared." Mold said one of the most important lessons from Ukraine is to avoid becoming trapped in a years-long war of attrition that consumes thousands of lives, huge quantities of weapons, and the capacity of entire societies. Western troops and veterans with experience connected to the Ukrainian theater have argued that many Western armed forces are not adequately prepared for the scale, tempo, and intensity of a major conventional war against an evenly matched adversary. A US veteran cited in the report said years of counterterrorism and guerrilla war missions had left Western militaries less familiar with the demands of fighting a large, well-equipped conventional opponent. The veteran added that the post-Cold War era gave many Western forces limited practical preparation for combat against an adversary with major artillery, drones, electronic warfare, deep reserves, and industrial capacity. Mold's warning echoes a broader concern among NATO officials and military analysts that modern warfare demands far larger reserves of munitions, equipment, trained personnel, and industrial capacity than many countries currently maintain. NATO readiness for a major conflict would require governments, civil agencies, transport networks, defense industries, and the public to be prepared alongside armed forces, according to the Norwegian Commander's Whole-of-Society assessment. A Ukraine-style war of attrition requires governments to maintain policy and funding, factories to replenish stocks, and societies to absorb disruption and personnel losses over an extended period. The sustainability challenge is especially serious for smaller European nations with limited populations, smaller defense industries, and less capacity to replace losses or replenish equipment over many years. A Norwegian serviceman involved in Task Force Legio warned that Norway could not endure an attritional conflict resembling Ukraine's war, saying the country won't exist as a nation if drawn into such a prolonged struggle. Estonia and Latvia have said their assessments of the Russian threat remain unchanged and have stressed the need for continued vigilance, stronger security, and close coordination with NATO partners. Estonia and Latvia said their assessment of the Russian threat remains unchanged despite the CIA chief's high-profile visit to Moscow. According to Politico, the main goal of Ratcliffe's visit was to warn Russia against taking any escalatory action against the Baltic states. The visit came as the Baltic states accused Russia of carrying out cyber attacks, sabotage, disinformation campaigns, and repeated aerial incursions. Estonian Foreign Minister Margus Tsahkna said the Russian threat against NATO must be taken seriously, stressing the need for continued vigilance. Tsahkna also insisted that Estonia remains alert to potential threats, but said the country's overall assessment of the Russian threat has not changed. Latvian Foreign Minister Beba Braze said Riga is taking the necessary measures with its NATO allies to strengthen security and prepare for potential threats. Beba Braze said, and I quote, "Russia's aggression in Ukraine and rising hybrid activities against NATO allies leave no room for complacency. Latvia's threat assessment remains unchanged. Together with our NATO allies, we are taking the necessary measures to strengthen our security," unquote. Latvian Prime Minister Andris Kulbergs said there is no reason for panic, adding that the risk of a direct military invasion remains low. The Swedish army has asked the government to seize Russian-owned property near the strategically important Musk naval base, according to Swedish broadcaster SVT. The property sits along one of the key approaches to Sweden's underground naval facility in the Stockholm archipelago, giving it potential military significance. The Swedish Fortifications Agency reportedly believes the site could offer unique conditions for strengthening the defenses around the Musk naval base. Swedish military officials say the property could also be important for protecting Musk against the growing threat posed by drones and other aerial surveillance. Swedish media reported that the property is owned by Russian businessman Stanislav Alashenko, whose ownership has drawn increased scrutiny from Swedish authorities. Alashenko has reportedly been linked to Russian President Vladimir Putin, while the property itself is registered in the name of his wife. Swedish reports said Alashenko had been developing a large country house on the property, adding another layer to the security concerns surrounding the site. The move comes as Sweden grows increasingly concerned about Russian activity and wider security threats across the Baltic region. Against the backdrop of sustained tensions between Russia and NATO, the Russian Navy's Baltic Fleet carried out tactical air defense drills near Kaliningrad on August 26. The purpose of the exercise was to rehearse how Baltic Fleet units would respond to and repel a simulated enemy air raid aimed at their naval base and nearby military facilities. Crews from ships stationed at the Baltic naval base carried out their assigned training tasks, including surveillance, target detection, threat classification, and the simulated destruction of hostile aircraft. Under the drill scenario, Su-30 multirole fighters, Mi-24 helicopters and unmanned aerial vehicles from the fleet's drone units acted as the simulated attacking force. After detecting and classifying the incoming targets, the warship crews used their anti-aircraft missile and artillery systems to notionally destroy the simulated enemy force. The drills came amid continuing NATO military activity around the Baltic Sea, where alliance members have increased surveillance, exercises, and force readiness following Russia's war in Ukraine. Russia has previously rejected calls for the Baltic Sea to become what Moscow describes as a NATO inland sea, arguing that the alliance's expanding presence threatens Russia's security interests in the region. President Vladimir Putin has said Russia would respond to any emerging threats to Kaliningrad, a heavily militarized Russian exclave position between NATO members Poland and Lithuania. NATO held a large air exercise on August 18, days after Russia's own military activity near Kaliningrad, bringing Allied aircraft together over Poland and the wider Baltic region. Around 25 aircraft from various NATO member states were reported to have joined the August 18 activity, although outside estimates varied and could not be fully verified by alliance officials. US, Polish and Lithuanian aircraft were detected in the region alongside American R-64E Apache attack helicopters, reflecting the multinational and multi-role nature of the exercise. A NATO E-3A Sentry aircraft operating over northern Poland provided airborne early warning, battle management, and command and control support for the wider air package. A U.S. Air Force EA-37B Compass Call electronic warfare aircraft operated near the Baltic approaches to Kaliningrad, while Artemis carried out intelligence and surveillance missions in the same area. The presence of several aerial refueling tankers was notable because it showed that prolonged time in the air and extended operational endurance were central to the day's training activity. Separate military aviation activity was also recorded over waters between Norway and Denmark, adding to the broader picture of heightened NATO air operations across northern Europe. A British P-8A Poseidon maritime patrol aircraft and a German military aircraft were tracked conducting flights for several hours between Norway and Denmark, though their specific mission was not publicly disclosed. The exact aim of the separate Norwegian-Danish flights remains unclear, and there is no public evidence that they were directly connected to the Kaliningrad air exercise. NATO Allied Air Command said the alliance is constantly improving its defensive capabilities, underscoring that such training is intended to maintain readiness and protect Allied airspace. The combination of platforms involved was notable because it brought together command aircraft, fighters, tankers, electronic warfare jets, reconnaissance assets and ground forces in a single coordinated package. The E-3A Sentry provided airborne command and control functions, while US and Norwegian fighters formed the combat element of the exercise alongside Polish ground forces. Tankers extended the package's endurance, while the EA-37B Compass Call brought electronic warfare capability and Artemis II supplied intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance support. Together, these aircraft can form a complete operational package capable of monitoring the airspace, coordinating fighters, gathering intelligence, disrupting adversary signals, and remaining airborne for long periods. Geographically, the exercise was significant because much of the activity took place over Poland and the Baltic region near Kaliningrad, one of Russia's most heavily defended military territories. Kaliningrad, Russia's Baltic exclave, located between NATO members Poland and Lithuania, is one of the alliance's most volatile operational regions because of its dense concentration of Russian missile, naval and air defense forces. Such NATO air activity near Kaliningrad is not unprecedented, as alliance members routinely conduct surveillance, air policing, and readiness operations along the eastern flank. NATO says these operations are usually conducted as part of planned and pre-announced exercises, although the alliance does not always disclose every operational detail in real time. As NATO-Russia tensions continue mounting, Moscow's latest air drills near Kaliningrad are raising fresh alarm bells across Europe. Russia deployed 10 Sukhoi 30S M2 fighters for live-fire strike drills in Kaliningrad, according to a report from Military Watch magazine. These exercises practiced both day and night precision strikes against a range of simulated enemy targets in the region. The drills specifically targeted mock command posts, engineering fortifications, troop concentrations, and armored vehicles. The fighters also trained to operate inside contested enemy air defense environments, practicing evasive maneuvers against simulated air defenses.
Upgrade your news experience with the all-new HT app. Download now.